On today's Rebel's Edge, the rare earth rumble continues as China launches its latest salvo in the U.S. trade war. We'll see how that turns out and how that's rattling markets. Also, continuing the crypto crash, what's causing Bitcoin and some of our other favorite crypto names to continue to decline? And finally, in Pete's Red Zone Sports, can Nebraska get its groove back? We'll cover all that and more on today's Rebel's Edge.
All right, so everybody who's wondering how John did such a good job of getting his makeup done and a little toupee on top or whatever, it's all good. But no, John is into truly parts unknown, Mark. I mean, you know, he is in the rest of the outer parts of the world, it seems like, where he is. And he was all set to do it, and then he was not set to do it. And thank you for being limber and being flexible enough to get us over here, man. It's great to have you here, Mark.
That's what I'm. Two things I'm known for, Pete: being limber and flexible. But that's for
I've
another
always
show.
thought you that way.
Yeah, I like you, but I just don't think about you that way. Yeah, of course. Your brother Pete is in the motherland, from what I understand. He's in the wilds of Armenia, doing God's work, and more on that when he returns. But it's always great to be with you, Pete.
Yep, fun to be here. Let's just jump into the macro, because there's a lot of different directions people can take. John and I oftentimes are looking at totally different things, and it makes a lot of sense because it is the macro. I think this time we're probably somewhere on the same page. The China tensions that's going on, Bessent and everybody's got something to say about something else and whatever. And obviously this move by the Chinese and the aggressive moves by the president sort of got this whole thing as a catalyst really kicked off. But we had a great day yesterday, but today giving back some of yesterday's gains. And we'll see if that's something that can be turned or not. But certainly I think when you look around, when you're talking about macro, it has to be China and what they're doing right now in terms of retaliation and everything else, and the aggressiveness of both sides. I'm not just saying this is just on China, because I think the president went after them pretty aggressively on Friday.
Yeah, he did. I mean, look, I'm going to be a little bit less polite when it comes to who's being more aggressive here. This was a move on the part of Chairman Xi and the Chinese party to restrict access to rare earth minerals, Pete, not just to the United States, but globally, right? Yeah. This scheme that says, well, companies are going to have to get a special license, and we can only guess who's going to get those licenses. And then to double down this morning and restrict access to Hanwha Global, Hanwha being South Korea, one of Asia's largest insurance companies and global logistics and supply chain companies. That was another major shot across the bow. I think all of this is, at the end of the day, posturing, that Trump and Xi are supposed to meet on Halloween at this APAC conference in South Korea. We'll see if Trump keeps that date. He's known to say, well, I'm not even going to meet with you if you're going to behave this way. So, we could see how that plays out. The other thing I'm looking at in macro, I don't know if you noticed, Pete, I put the decorations up in front of the house. It's earnings season again for those that celebrate. And it's going to be an interesting one against a very quiet backdrop, thanks to the government shutdown, of no economic data. I think that's a good thing. The market's going to be able to focus on what we are looking to see about, on average, 5 to 6% earnings growth across the board quarter over quarter.
Well, and time after time this year, 2025, it's all about earnings, and that's saving the markets, in my opinion. Each quarter, when we kick it off, they are literally the catalyst, I think, that actually can get the markets moving in the right direction once again. So the numbers that we're already seeing, pretty damn good from what I'm looking at. But, because of these tensions, we got a little bit of pressure on us. I got to tell you, for fantastic futures, I'm going to go straight at the VIX. I've been moving around talking about silver and gold and the Burl Ives trade and all that kind of thing. But when you've got a VIX that's up 30%, 30+% in just a week, and then you look at it again this morning, it had pulled back yesterday, back under 20, and now here we are once again, pushed towards 23, call it a little bit closer to 22. There's a lot going on there. And you know who's done pretty well? That gentleman that we call 50 Cent. And the options that we had seen there that were getting bought, and this is going back just a couple of weeks ago, but they were buying the 16 calls in the VIX. That was pretty much exactly where it was, selling the upside 25 calls going out to November. Well, I can tell you this, they've made some pretty good money on that trade, Mark, because that was just a little over a $2 trade at the time. That exploded over the last couple of trading days, specifically today on this big move, like I said, early on in the morning towards 23. Volatility is certainly the big part of the game, and the implied volatility of a lot of these stocks is just going to start lifting with that VIX, I think, in a hurry as we get deeper into earnings season.
Are you at all concerned, Pete, though? I mean, a 23 handle, just to contextualize it for those that are not as VIX indoctrinated as perhaps you and I, is 23 a range that starts to give you any concern, or are we still in an area that the bulls can remain in charge?
It's a great question. They can remain in charge. Yes, absolutely. Over 20, they absolutely can. We've seen numbers that are extraordinarily higher than where we are right now. But it seems like when we get above 20, it kind of turns into a little bit of a black hole sort of a thing. We start to see a little bit less option paper and all the rest of it. And certain things start to occur in the markets that I think do change how people are looking at the markets because of that, because the implied volatilities are certainly going to move along with the VIX itself, which is a measure for the S&P and how much movement we'd see there. So, yeah, there's going to be some effects. It's kind of the nowhere land is between 20 and 25. You start getting above that, it becomes actually a different kind of trade, but a good trading environment, a little bit scarier for the people that are used to seeing it at 16, 17. But we start getting above 25, up there towards 30. It actually becomes another different way of having to put on some trades, but it turns into a lot more volumes coming at that level too. So we're in kind of that no man's land right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all gotten used to and lulled into maybe a false sense of security with the VIX under a 17 handle for as long as it's been. I'll hit just super quick on my fantastic futures crypto. I get asked all the time, certainly on the sell-off that started on the back of China's trade war salvo that we just covered at the top of the show. Crypto selling off hard, a little bit of a recovery yesterday. I'm letting people know, don't panic, don't sell. I'm actually adding to some of my positions. As you know, I've got that Jeff Garbaz IBIT December call position on, still 70 handle on that ETF. It's an options trade, of course, but I think, look, with the rest of Trump's crypto legislation expected to pass handily before the end of the year, we're going to be much higher when we're putting up those Christmas trees coming up in a couple months.
Yeah, well, let's just jump right into it, Mark. We've got 4 great stocks that we want to talk about today. One of them is right up your alley. I'll actually let you play the lead on this one, and I'll jump in with you. But we talk about rare earths for all the right reasons. That is the next best thing, right? I mean, there's always something out there, no matter what it is. It starts with maybe the cloud, but then all of a sudden it's the data centers. Well, then it's all about the energy that it's going to take to run those everywhere you go. And all of that is impacted by rare earths. And so as we talked about at the top, we talked about Xi and some of the moves that they're making. And oh, by the way, they do pretty well in terms of percentages of who really is the big daddy right now on rare earths. And we know who it is. It isn't us, but we have a chance. And I think that what the president's been doing is starting to get little pieces of this, that, and the everywhere, and getting our rare earths back into play so that we aren't as much dependent upon the Chinese.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Pete. And just to contextualize it for our viewers, China mines 60% of the world's rare earth minerals. These are these various types of minerals that go into virtually every form of electronics that we make, right? And anybody makes, whether it's on the consumer side, the microchip side, or on the national defense side. So critical to national security. But here's the other side of that coin. China refines 90% of these rare earths. So just because the rest of the world takes 40% of it out of the ground, that is still 90% reliant on China to refine it, to put this stuff into a form that can be used in manufacturing. We've seen the government make unprecedented investments in companies like MP, Trilogy. We've covered all those on the show. All of these, or many, I should say, of these rare earth miners and refiners, the sector exploding, particularly following that Thursday news. Here's one near and dear to my heart. The company is called Almonte Industries. The rare earth they focus on is tungsten. This stuff is some of the hardest material in the world, stronger than diamonds. It's used across a lot of manufacturing in rare earth. I actually, Pete, when I was practicing law about 15 or 16 years ago, helped take this company public, and we're so happy to see how this thing's performed. That chart tells the tale, everything you need to know. Stock up 40% just in the last 5 trading days, flirting with $10 a share, 52-week high today. This is one that, folks, if you're considering the rare earth mineral world, keep an eye on it. I do own shares in the company. This is not a paid endorsement, but I do have a position in this. And interestingly as well, fun fact, Lewis Black, the CEO, a guy I've known and respected for a long time, is going to be joining our dear friend Liz Clayman on the Clayman Countdown today on Fox Business to talk about Almonte's role in the rare earth story.
Isn't Lewis Black the comedian? Anyway, no,
yes, but they're not unrelated. It's totally unrelated.
All right, next up, we're going to go with we're going to do a run right now for you with earnings. We talked about how important those earnings really are. Well, let's just jump into it. How about Albertsons? Albertsons comes out, and why are they up pretty substantially today? A nice move to the upside for a company like this. But they raised their guidance. That's always important. They raised their sales growth. That's important. They beat on their earnings by a pretty decent margin. They had 44 cents. They were looking for 40 cents. And then you look at their revenue. Revenue was outstanding at $19.92 billion. So across the board, they also declared a cash dividend of 15 cents. 750 million share repurchase is another part of it. I think the reason we're seeing that gap is not only because of the strength in which they actually are positioned right now, because everybody was still worried, Mark, about, oh man, groceries and how much expensive they're going to be and all this other kind of stuff. Well, here's what the reality is. They've been able to do really, really well despite some of the issues that have been going on, and those are big issues. But the fact that they've got that repurchase and they've got a pretty big number now, 2.75 billion is what they're talking about. So they are moving and shaking and doing everything right now. And I think that I'll give you a crazy read through. Walmart. Why do I say that? Well, about 50+% of what Walmart has in revenue comes right from the grocery. And if they're doing well right now at Albertsons, I'm going to tell you right now, I think Walmart's going to have a pretty nice earnings when the time comes.
Yeah, listen, I got to agree with that. This is certainly spectacular news from Albertsons. And for me, really, the punchline here for this is, as we have been saying for months, even going back to Liberation Day when it was gloom and doom and fear that, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria, as some of our friends on some 3-letter networks would like us to believe, companies thus far have not had to pass along the cost of the tariffs to the consumers. We're seeing it month after month. Now we're seeing it quarter after quarter. This is another indication of that. And if rates come down, Jay Powell is going to speak, I think, at about around now, Pete. I'm just hoping he doesn't put his foot in his mouth and make any hawkish commentary. But as I've said before, if we bring that cost of capital down for corporations, it's going to make it even easier for them to avoid passing the costs of tariffs along to the consumers.
And I've said for a long time, if he takes a nail and just pounds it on his shoe and keeps it from getting his foot in his mouth, I think we'll be just fine. Because Jay Powell always goes too far. Every once in a while, you look at President Trump and you're going, that was a great speech. Now be done. And then He just keeps on going and you're like, okay, all right. Same thing with Jay Powell. He's great until all of a sudden he goes off the cuff and then it turns into something a little bit different and everybody gets wound up about it. All right, let's jump into Domino's. Now, this one falls into the category of a lot of the things that you were just talking about, Mark. They did crush it. They beat on their earnings in a big way. They put up 408. They were looking for 396. I mean, that's a pretty daggone big beat. They also had their same store sales. That was up about 5%. Great stuff. They had one of their best campaigns they've ever had with this best deal ever campaign that they put out there. All of that's great. The only negative that you can see here, and it's understandable because they are cutting prices, they're doing this and they're doing that, but their gross margins, were they down? Yes. Were they down a lot? I would say no, but they were down, and that's something a lot of people are looking at. But I think that was a really smart move by Domino's. How they did that, the stock was up last I looked about 4%, I think for all the right reasons. They are humming right now, Mark, and the people that are looking for a deal, and they see the kind of deals that Domino's has been putting out there, I can tell you firsthand, I've tried it here and there just because, and they're doing a great job, man. They're doing a great job. I know it's not mom and pop shops and all the rest of it, but they're executing in a really, really good way right now. And I think that's why people are rewarding them with the stock going higher.
Yeah, if they could just do something about what it tastes like, that would really be great. But yeah, I'm not.
Oh,
I'm
come
not.
on, man.
Listen, I like cheese on my cardboard as much as the next guy, but as an Italian American, having Domino's in my house is a cardinal sin. Enough on that.
Understood. I totally get it. I totally get it. But they're better than they were, and they've got all these different crusts now and all the rest of it. I actually
Sure.
was pretty impressed by them. Now, speaking about being impressed, how about these financials that they reported? I mean, across the board, you're looking at these various numbers, and I think overall looking pretty good. But who probably looked the best? Maybe potentially. I mean, I don't know that there is just a best, but I'll highlight Wells Fargo. And Wells Fargo did an incredible job. Their net income, they crushed it, absolutely crushed it, up 9%. I mean, that was something pretty big. They beat on their earnings. That's what you wanted to see. Were they able to weather the storm and get themselves there? I think so. And it's up what? Last I looked, I think, Mark, Wells Fargo was up what, 5-6%, something like that. Not so bad. They talked about credit lines and losses and all the rest of it. Though they were about half of what they forecast in terms of those credit losses. So they really had a very, very good quarter. I've been expecting this quarter from all of them. I honestly look at all of these, especially the investment banks. That's the ones that I absolutely want to focus on. But they have been crushing it. And if you've been listening to the Rebel's Edge, we've been talking about all these different takeouts and all the rest of this stuff, and even some of the IPOs. This has been a very, very bullish side of what we're seeing in the markets. And I think that we saw some of the fruits of that labor that just in this last quarter, and it looks pretty damn strong across the board. Doesn't mean everything goes straight up just because everything's great. They've been trading pretty high. We are at record highs here and there until the last 2 or 3 trading sessions. But people, I think, have been pretty excited about what's going on in the banking world.
There's no doubt. And today, big day with the banks unofficially kicking off earnings season. I was joking about the earnings season decorations. The actual official kickoff of earnings season is next Wednesday, notwithstanding the fact that we have 132 companies reporting this week. And today, we heard from some of the biggest, not only America's favorite stagecoach, Wells Fargo, that you were covering, but we also had Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, and JP Morgan. That one is the one that really jumped off the page at me, Pete. $700 million in unexpected and unanticipated revenue from trading and banking. Imagine finding $700 million among the couch cushions. That's what Jamie Dimon did against the backdrop of an announcement that bank will be investing $1.5 trillion with a T dollars in the next 10 years. And guess what? This is going to sound like a story that you've heard earlier in the show, folks. Critical infrastructure, minerals, American manufacturing, supply chain, JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon making some big moves. That's my fave today of the bank darlings.
Yeah. Oh, he's my favorite as well. I mean, what he's been able to accomplish, good markets, tough markets, great markets, everything. The flow has been fantastic. I'd put Goldman Sachs somewhere pretty high on that list as well, to be honest with you. All right. You ready to jump on some sports? I know you are.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Feel it.
Just don't bring up the Jets. Just don't ask me about the Jets.
I backed off the Jets, but I can't remember. As soon as they win, I'll talk about them. Anyway, let's talk about
wait.
We'll talk about this. So we talked about college coaches recently, Mark, and the fact that, I've never seen a year like this where we've had 8 college coaches already get fired, and we're barely halfway through, if we're even halfway through the season or whatever, right? So pretty interesting to see that. We've kind of talked about that, but how about the NFL? So we had our first go down just the other day, whether it was yesterday, I think, actually. Brian Callahan, Tennessee Titans. They gave him a really good runway, though. He was the coach last year, and he was the coach this year, and he's 1-5. I think he's coached something like, 19 games total, something like that, and they made the decision, all right, we were really bad. We had a new coach. You're the new coach, and we gave you 19 games, and we're done with you. They kicked him to the curb. I mean, it's absolutely amazing, Mark, how fast in the NFL they react sometimes. And I'm not surprised because I know the owners really want to have winners and so forth. But there's a reason that the Tennessee Titans had the first pick in the draft. And that reason is because they stunk. And so they were able to get a quarterback who I think is really good, but they're not giving this coach much time at all. And it's really too bad, but it's the nature of the game. So I wanted to say this. Who's sitting on the hot seats right now? And I'll give you one. Mike McDaniel down there in Miami. First of all, he frustrates a lot of people because he's so anti-typical coach. You know, everything about him says that he's that guy. He's almost like a baseball guy. He must be just doing numbers. He's doing this and that don't really always make sense in the NFL. He's in a bad spot right now. And I read about this and it's awful because Tua, the quarterback, actually came out, Mark, and he said, you know, we actually don't all show up for everything that we're supposed to show up for. Guys on the team are just saying, you know what, I'm going to skip that meeting. I'm going to do this. It's like, I can tell you as a guy who's been there, that does not happen. I don't care how bad your record is. That doesn't happen. And if it does happen, the coach has a lot of room to be able to say, all right, let's get rid of this guy. He's bad news. We're going to move on without them or whatever. But for whatever reason, I don't know why, but I think this guy has got a real problem right now. And I got one more, but what do you think about this Miami? Because he's been talked about as this, you know, one of these guys who's the latest, greatest new, hey, he's a young guy who really understands the quarterback's mentality and all the rest of this stuff. I see a guy who looks like he's got a clipboard talking about what's going on the periodic table. I mean, I don't know if this guy looks like he's really a football coach or not. And so far, I've been proven right as they're sitting at 1-5.
Well, it strikes me, Pete, that if the NFL had the ability for players to take a no confidence vote like they do in parliaments in some part of the world, that McDaniels would be gone faster than a cafecito in Miami at 7 a.m. I mean, this is real. It's unprecedented to hear somebody like Tua speaking to the press like this. Not a classy move out of a guy that I actually have a lot of belief in as a player. We followed him obviously from college football through to where he is right now with the Dolphins. But yeah, I think McDaniels is probably not long for this world when we see the kind of turnover and the kind of lack of patience that owners are having. And you know, it's interesting. We were having this conversation. I said I wouldn't bring up the Jets, but just quickly, you and I were having this conversation after the Jets-Cowboys game that I went to a couple of Sundays ago. Yep. And it seems like this season, not that coaching and the coach's performance is ever not relevant or a front of mind when it comes to the performance of teams during an NFL season, but it seems to me that there's a lot of focus, maybe more so than normal focus, on the underperformance of coaching and coaches for many of these teams. And I wonder, I don't know why that is, but it certainly seems like something that's going on now more than historically speaking.
And I got one more where I think the seat is not just warm, it's starting to get hot. And but the crazy part is this, Mark, when I say the name, you're going to go, no way, it's just not going to happen. But I'm going to say it anyway, because I'll show you why it can happen. John Harbaugh, Baltimore Ravens. All he's done is bring this team to Super Bowls and playoffs and all the great things that he's done for many, many years, right? I mean, he's been fantastic. He's done a great job. But they're 1-5. They've got no defense. And now he's having to play with a team where the quarterback is hurt. He's not able to be out there either. That's a problem. But when you look at the fact that this is a defensive-minded guy and their defense is the worst in the entire NFL, 32 teams, they are the worst in just about every category, that's a problem. I mean, forget the fact that the quarterback's not there right now and he's hurt, but they just don't have whatever it is that Baltimore has always had. And people will say, well, Pete, there is no way they're going to get rid of him. And I'm going to say this. Okay, well, I don't know. Do you ever hear of a guy named Andy Reid who has the winningest record ever as a coach at Philadelphia with the Eagles? He had every number. If you go through statistics, all you got to do is go, oh my gosh, this guy was the greatest thing ever. How did they get rid of him? Well, they got rid of him. All he's done is gone down to Kansas City. It seems like he's done pretty damn good down there with Patrick Mahomes and the rest of the players that they put out there. So don't think that this is that far out there first when you hear it. I think that John Harbaugh's got to be a guy who's sort of in, you know what, somewhere else in the NFL, they're going to snap him up. But right now, I think that the Ravens ownership is looking at this going, do we need to make a move? Do we need to make a move? And they might make that move. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting.
So, Pete, how about I did tease it in the cold open, and we've only got about 60 seconds here, but can Nebraska get their groove back? I mean, this was a storied team. What do you think?
Yeah, I do, and I think they already have. They're 5-1 right now. They're number 25 in the country. They've got a quarterback that a lot of people, dislike or like. He tries to model himself after Patrick Mahomes. He goes for the look. He does all that stuff. It's interesting to see. They do not have the black shirts, and you and I talked about this. The black shirts were when you were the number one defense. If you were a member of the number one defense for Nebraska, you wore a black shirt. It was like a sign of, hey, look, these are the top 11 guys on our football team on the defensive side. They get black shirts. Everybody else is either wearing red or white at Nebraska. Well, they haven't been the black shirts in a really long time. They aren't the black shirts this year, but their offense is pretty damn good. They got a running back who can run all over people. They've got a couple of receivers who are outstanding. They always have tight ends and offensive linemen. So it's the offense that's carrying them. And I will be at the game on Friday. It's the 7:00 game right here in Minnesota in my backyard. So nice. I will be there. I'll probably be on the Nebraska sideline strolling around with some of my friends that are there, including the historic coach. So they treat me really well, even though I didn't go to school there. My daughter did, and she used to work for the football program. So I'm excited for them. I'm excited for my Gophers as well, because the Gophers are playing a little bit better. And there's people out there that are wondering if the head coach at Nebraska or maybe the head coach at Minnesota might be filling in for that Penn State job that everybody's saying, how can they possibly afford this? Let me tell you, they got people that will write the checks for $56 million, Mark, which is owed to the coach they just fired. They'll write that check and they'll write another one. It's just amazing. I mean, and that's what Penn State can do, because, they've got great alumni that want to support the football program.
Well, Pete, with only 4 home games left in Minnesota, enjoyed that time on the sidelines. A little humble reminder, my daughter does want to join you on the sidelines for one of these games at some point in time. No pressure to just call you out on live television here, but that's okay.
She's always
folks,
invited.
Thank you very, very much for joining Pete Najarian and myself, there he is, for another hard-hitting, action-packed episode of The Rebel's Edge. You can catch Pete and John, as you know, Monday through Thursday, 4 days a week, 1:00 Eastern time, for all the market news that you need and news that you can use. Just a couple of quick housekeeping matters. I want to remind everybody that we are going to be at 10X Wealth in December. That's 11th and 12th at the beautiful Fontainebleau Hotel. If you want to join us there, contact your friendly Market Rebellion salesperson. And we're also announcing the Active Traders Conference in January. That's another great event coming up. Details to follow on that one. Until we see you next time, remain a rebel. And as Pete always likes to say, trade smarter.